Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well. My name's William, this is iRacing, and today we're going to be driving the Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 around Lime Rock Park. This is for the Michelin Pilot Challenge Series, the official series for iRacing. The track they'll be racing at this week, Lime Rock Park Classic, is the layout. So not the one with the awful chicane, fortunately, but still a short track, but a very difficult track. Not a whole lot of room for error, and if you mess it up a little bit, you're looking at a lot of time that you're losing on your lap time. Tenths matter way more around such a short track like this, and also if you just kind of step a foot wrong, it is very easy to cost yourself seconds because there's not a whole lot of runoff around this track. So in this video, I will have my hot lap setup and a track guide for you as well to try and help you out this week if you are running it. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump on into the hot lap, and then I will be back to talk to you guys through the track guide for Lime Rock Park Classic, and also have my setup up at the end. So without further ado, guys, enjoy, and I'll be back with you for the track guide. All right, everybody, so let's go ahead and take a look at a lap around Lime Rock Park Classic here. I'm going to try and point out my braking markers and kind of what I'm aiming for through the corner, as well as kind of pointing out some mistakes I made on this lap, because there was definitely a couple, and just a couple where I was a little too conservative. But we can go ahead and get into it here. We're on the start-finish line, heading down into turn one. So you can see these braking markers here on the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This white line as well across the track. So these are basically the only braking markers that you're going to have that are nice and obvious. So if you want to use one of those for this track, go with the 4. I like to use the white line across the track. It's easy. I can keep my eyes down the track and not be looking off to the left. It's not a big deal either way, though. It's just my personal preference. But we come up to the 4, or the white line here, and I'm going to jump on the brakes for turn 1. I should have been a little bit more aggressive with my initial brake pressure here. You can see we're just probably about 60%. I probably should have been about 70% braking. It's going to cause me to run a little bit wide through turn 1, but we'll get to that in a moment. So hard on the brakes, not quite hard enough here, but hard on the brakes at that white line, and already going to go ahead and start just trying to wiggle the wheel to get the car to rotate over to this first apex, which is going to be the curbing coming up on the right hand side here. So we're going to be aiming for this white line, just nearly nicking the curb. Later in the run, I definitely think that you can go for running over this curb instead of just nicking the white line. But on low tire pressures, low tire temperatures, stuff like that, I think avoiding jumping this curb is probably a good call, just because it can really unsettle the car and kind of get you a little bit too much yaw to be able to hold on to it. So this is kind of just avoiding the curb. And then what I would want to do through this corner is hold a nice tight line to the right hand side of the track, not really going any further left than a car width. But you can kind of see what happens here. I'm carrying too much momentum. The car's going to go out way over here to the left. So this is a pretty good chunk more than a car width. Unfortunate, but it is really just about how you attack the initial braking, getting into that corner. And alternatively, if you're really struggling with it, just try and break just a little bit earlier. It doesn't really take a whole lot to not wind up over here and be kind of on the proper line. Plus, you don't want somebody potentially trying to stick their nose up the inside here. Is there's not a whole lot you can do about it if they do that and then just kind of want to bully you off the track, um, which is definitely something to look for, since there's not a whole lot of passing opportunities around this track. That's going to be something people are going to be looking to do, is be a little bit of a bully, unfortunately. So this is just kind of one continuous long right-hander. You don't really break it up any. You just kind of constantly turning the car, and for the second phase of it, once you get kind of through the middle of the corner here, you're really trying to just set the nose of the car with the throttle. So you can see we picked up the throttle pretty aggressively. We know the car was going to go straight, and then the second I really want to make sure I'm going to get the car rotated back to the right and hit the second apex here. Um, we're kind of lifting out of the throttle. So lifting out of the throttle, I know the car's going to go ahead and run up on this curb a little bit, which is kind of what I want to do. I can run up on this curb. The left-hand side of the car is very loaded up. I'm not too worried about getting too much of a bounce over this curb or anything like that. So we're going to clip that curb and then start picking the throttle back up. And a little bit late to full throttle, but still picking it up pretty aggressively, which is what I was wanting to do there. Now then, straightening the car out, and just not running too far over onto this curb. I want to get the car straight. Make sure it's coming off this curb, not going to go through the grass, and start eyeing my next braking zone for the only left-hander around this track. So you can see the end of the curb here on the left, this gray patch on the right, and then the start of the tire barrier, these lines in the grass, and this X of like tire marks. These lines on the grass, or this X of tire marks, are probably going to be your best bet for a braking marker for the following left-hander. That is what I'm aiming for, is this X of the tire marks. I basically want to point my car right at it, right, basically the driver's seat passes right over the X, and I actually brake a little bit past it, but um, ideally I'd want to be braking right around it, and it's just a really light brake pressure, just setting the nose of the car so I can turn in, get the car turned, and hug this white line. So you can see I got the car turned in pretty well, and it's kind of holding the white line, and I start to coast. Um, I should have picked the throttle up about this much, just to kind of go ahead and set the rear now and get it rotating off of the right rear, and hold the inside really tight to this curbing here on the left. But you can see what I do with the throttle there. I pick it up to about 70% because I have a Thunderfoot, and now this is going to cause my car, even though I've backed completely off the throttle and I've got a lot of wheel in the car, I'm just going to understeer out into the middle of the track here. So don't make that mistake. Don't be too aggressive with the throttle through that little part. You really just want to focus on keeping the car over to the left. This is about as far left as I would go ideally, but you can see here I already know the car's going over to the right, so I'm just picking the throttle up really aggressively. If you had the proper line, the car would be already angled a little bit more to the left, and you could go ahead and start feeding the throttle in and getting it to rotate, uh, basically just kind of hugging the inside of this like darker part of the track. But I know I'm going to pick the throttle up, and the second I do, the car's going to shoot off over here into this lighter patch, and that's basically exactly what it does. It's about a car width offline, unfortunately, And because of that, I'm going to have to aggressively lift through this right-hander as opposed to just like cracking the throttle or something along those lines. And you treat all of this basically as one kind of long straight. As it is, it's a really long acceleration zone for this track. So anytime off throttle is a lot of time you're losing. So keeping it far to the left and sacrificing that entire corner to really set up as much throttle time as you can get through this right hander all the way down towards the uphill over. As we get further along into lap is pretty important. But you can see here I have to lift pretty aggressively and then get back to the throttle, make sure I'm keeping the car within uh, the the uh, the track limits there, but just kind of unfortunate. You just kind of see once again because of where I am, I have to set the car back over to the left. Once I set the car back over to the left, I now have to turn back to the right. I couldn't have kept the car that far to the right and made the corner and stayed on the track. I needed to come over here to really open the corner up. And because I had to come over to open the corner up, now I'm way off throttle just to make sure the car is going to even rotate into it. But nevertheless, we keep it within the track limits and we go down the kind of like back straight here towards the uphill. Once again, not really a great place for good braking references, but we can just take a look through here. This kind of tree overhang, I guess, is a really good one. This like porta potty off to the right, or this cutout in the track, is also a pretty good spot to reference. I use the tree personally. This it's big, it's really hard to miss, and it does hang out quite a bit. So this overhanging tree, we're just gonna lightly brake through this section. You can see very light brake pressure, keeping the wheels straight, just loading the front of the car up. And then once I know it's got it loaded up, I'm kind of at my turn-in point, about halfway down this curbing, and I'm going to go ahead and turn the car in towards the right side of the track here. So at this point, it kind of seems like you're carrying too much speed, in all honesty. But the second you start going uphill, you basically are just loading the front of the car up even more. So you can see here, we're we're hitting that curb. And if we didn't start going uphill, the car would probably be going off and absolutely annihilating that corner worker. But fortunately, it goes uphill. The front of the car really loads up, and we're already aggressively back to the throttle. So you can see I'm not using all of this over to the left. I really don't like to use this part of the track. I'm wanting to basically brake down until I know I'm going to hit this curb. The second I know I'm just going to tap this curb, I want to go back to full throttle. That, in my opinion, that helps kind of settle the car down as I get it towards this compression. So once I'm on this compression, my next goal is basically just straighten the car out. Because you're going to go over this crest, and the car's going to be really loaded up right now, but it is going to completely unload as we hit this crest. So you can see full throttle. I'm trying to get the car as straight as I can. I'm trying to get the wheel as straight as I can. That way, as I crest here, and the car goes completely airborne, basically, in the front and really light on the rear, I don't have any yaw in the car at all. So it's not going to come down at a weird angle or take a weird set, and I'm going to have to catch it on the landing. It's an absolutely terrible feeling. And if especially if the kind of the rear of the car is kicking out, um, very easy to lose it over that over the crest there. And if you do kind of take that jump and the car feels like it's unsettled, I would recommend just lifting off the gas completely if you feel the car really going sideways through the air, and just focus on catching the car the second it lands, because you will definitely have your hands full. So we hit that crest nice and straight, no drama, was able to keep the foot flat, which is always nice. As we come into the second to last corner here, once again, I think this is actually the worst corner for any kind of braking marker, at least for me. So I don't really have one that's that great. I just kind of go with the rhythm. And right before these tire marks here in the track, and it is a pretty light brake pressure. Once again, you're not getting into like 70-80% brakes, just probably south of 50% as the peak pressure and trailing it off once again. Um, just loading the nose up and aiming for my apex. So my apex is basically about a car length prior to this this kind of apron, or this, I don't, access road, I guess, going off into the inside of the track here, and I'm not wanting to really hit this curb at all. Um, you're The amount of space you have to work with on corner exit is very tight. This corner is extremely tight, especially on exit. And if I clobber this curb, I know the car is going to get shoved off to the left, and I don't want the car going any further left than the speed is going to take it, really. So hitting that curb is just going to be trouble, in my opinion. So like I said, you can kind of see here where I'm apexing it is right on this white line and about a car width prior to that access road, and not hitting the curb, just touching the white line there. And then full throttle. I kind of had to take a stab at it because I knew if I had aggressively gone full throttle as early as I had planned, yeah, I had to breathe it a little bit just to make sure I was going to stay within the bounds of the track. You can see some laps I didn't. That's where those tire marks are, or tire tracks are from. You can drop a wheel out there. It's not going to be the end of the world. But if you're getting a whole lot more car out there than that, you're probably going to be going for a ride. It's really easy to lose the car over this, and you're carrying quite a bit of speed too, and you're going into a downhill. So it's going to be really hard to get the car straightened out and avoid the walls through this section, especially because of how tight it gets. So as we go into the final corner now, you kind of drop down the hill. And what I like to do for my braking marker is it's basically the second before the car really kind of levels out, as you're basically reaching the bottom of the downhill. But a good way to mark that is this tree and these marks kind of going sideways. So you've got these straight tire marks once again. I really don't like using these tire marks because they're kind of hard to see in some lighting, but you can see these tire marks right here, here, and here, as opposed to all these straight ones. It's also pretty much right next to the tree I was talking about. So right as we get near them, just a light tap of the brakes. And that's basically, I'm wanting to use the fact that the car is going downhill already, and it's about to kind of put its weight on its back. I want to go ahead and tap the brakes now and get the car turned while the front is going to be really susceptible to all that weight transfer, and then just slowly letting off the brakes. Just to kind of make sure the front is actually gripped up, and I'm gonna aim towards this curb. I actually do want to hit this curb for this one, and then aggressively pick the throttle up. Kind of uh, not really sure if I'm going to go 100% until I know how the car is reacting over the curbs, as it can kind of take a bad bounce sometimes. And you can see there as it hits and bounces, I let off, and then I go, okay, well, that wasn't a bad bounce. The car is going to be just fine. Bounce and full throttle. And then just running out to the curb, not going too wide, but just trying to scrub as little speed as possible once I know the car is off of that curb and going to stay within the bounds of, or the track limits of the track, I guess. Wow, that was a great sentence. Anyways, so yeah, now you're just down the start finish line, and that is a pretty darn short lap around here, a 52.960. Like I said, a couple mistakes, and yeah, my best lap is just a little bit faster with an optimum, quite a bit faster. It's definitely one of those. It's very technical and very, very hard to get right, but hopefully that can help you out and kind of point you in the right direction as to where to place the car around the track and give you some good reference points, or at least a few different options for reference points as you try and kind of spot out your braking zones and apexes around here. So hope you enjoyed, and let's go ahead and get on into the setup. All right, so we'll go ahead and run through the setup real quick, not take too much time here, but lowest tire pressures as always, until there's a major update or change or something to the tire model or the car. That is, in my opinion, the best way to go. So lowest tire pressures possible. Onto the chassis page here, just tweaking off of previous weeks. There's only really a couple things I'm going to say here. If you want a little bit more rotation on the brakes, just move this brake bias backwards, so lower number. If you want it initially, you can start with the lower number. What I've been doing for the stability in the braking zones, I've been starting my runs at 47.5, and then as the tire pressures and temperatures come up, if I want a little bit more rotation, I just change it in car um, by a click or two, just basically taking about 0.5% of the brake bias out, maybe a little bit more towards the end of a run, but it's really up to you. If you want a little more rotation under the brakes, make that number lower or go negative. If you want a little bit less rotation, just move it forward a little bit. Um, the other thing I was going to say is if you want a little bit more stability from the rear end of the car, just try increasing this rear toe by a click or two. You can see it's almost at 1 millimeter. Just go up a click or two, about 1.8 millimeters. Add about a millimeter of rear toe, and that can help you out. Alternatively, just decreasing this rear anti-roll bar will make the car feel a little bit safer. It's where increasing it by one click, increasing it is going to give you a little bit more rotation on the rear, and decreasing it's going to make the car just a little bit safer on the rear, in my opinion. So you can definitely give that a go if you want to try and make it go one way or the other. Kind of run in the middle of the road there for me. So um, if you guys are racing this week, I wish you all the best of luck. Hopefully this can help you out. If you can keep it on the track, it'll probably pay dividends way more than this setup or anything will. So just try and focus on keeping it on the track, and you should have a decent shot at it with how tricky this is around here. If this does help you out, give this video a like. It helps me out a ton, so I really do appreciate it. Feel free to share this as always. And yeah, until next time, guys, I'll see you later. So bye bye.